UNESCO is exploring how knowledge and learning can shape the future of humanity and the planet. Let's envision the futures of education. With the COVID-19 lockdowns and restrictions, we've seen that it's possible to radically shift the ways we live. People are adjusting to new realities. As we return to working, learning, and living more closely together, let's learn from this experience. In many places, we've seen cleaner air and realized that our ways of living involve real trade-offs. We've realized the extent of our vulnerabilities. The crisis is affecting people's lives and livelihoods differently, exposing the severity of inequalities. For students, teachers, and humanity, this is an important opportunity to understand that what we have considered normal is not inevitable, but is a choice, a result of our choices. What are we learning from the coronavirus disruptions? What needs to be different than before?
It's the largest disruption of global education systems in history. When the pandemic first hit, around 1.5 billion students around the world were sent home as schools closed their doors. Some have since reopened, but class isn't in session for half of the world's school children. The lucky ones were able to pursue their studies online. But for many, even in developed countries, that's not an option. The world was already struggling to come to grips with educational inequality. Now, the United Nations warns the COVID crisis is making it worse, disproportionately affecting the most vulnerable, and threatening to wipe out decades of progress for this generation and possibly beyond.
In January 2020, China and Mongolia decided to close schools so as to help stem the spread of COVID-19 and protect their populations. Scores of countries did the same in the weeks that followed as the pandemic raged across the globe. By 17 April, more than 1.5 billion children and young people, over 90% of the world's learners, were out of school. Most countries then turned to digital distance teaching to ensure that learning continued. This is when the problem posed by the digital divide became even more glaring than it already was. 826 million students, or half the world's learners, do not have computers, and 706 million do not even have access to the internet. The situation is particularly dire in sub-Saharan Africa, where over 80% of young people do not have access to the internet at home. To ensure that learning never stops and that children everywhere were able to continue their education, UNESCO launched the Global Education Coalition in March. The coalition's aim is to mobilize the expertise of both the public and private sectors to offer quick, free and appropriate solutions to countries lacking the technology, content or skills distance learning requires. For example, Orange, the telecommunications company, has provided internet access to educational content free of charge in several countries in sub-Saharan Africa and the Arab states. UNESCO and Education Cannot Wait, a global fund dedicated to providing education in times of crisis, supplied Lebanon's Ministry of Education with 297 video courses in mathematics, science and French. In Samoa, telecom group Vodafone gave free SIM cards with unlimited access to 4G data on several approved education websites to 80,000 learners. While some students have now gone back to school, UNESCO continues to monitor learning at the global level. UNESCO also maintains its work to reduce the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on education.
What kinds of futures do we want to shape? Accelerated climate change, artificial intelligence and biotechnology, increasing exclusion and fragmentation. Our world is becoming more complex and uncertain with many disruptive challenges. Knowledge and learning are humanity's greatest renewable resources for responding to challenges and inventing alternatives. Yet, education doesn't only respond to a changing world. Education transforms the world. But to create the futures we want, we must rethink education. UNESCO has launched a global initiative to reimagine how knowledge and learning can shape the future of humanity and the planet. We are looking at 2050 and beyond, and we want to partner with you to discuss, debate, and re-envision the ways education enables us to become what we want to become. For ourselves, for each other. Thinking together so we can act together. Join the conversation and let's make the futures we want.